So a little over 4 months ago I started a petition locally, doing door-to-door petition to see what people's thoughts were with regards to the planters, and the response from there on kind of climbed, going on to an online scheme, an online petition, and that allowed a more visibility on a wider audience and group of people living in the area that have been affected. And that has now climbed, or surpassed 2,000 plus as it stands.
I've lived on Heathside Road for nearly 10 years.
I've lived on this estate for 40 years.
I am the resident of Fairholme Road for 14 years.
I've lived in this road, Allen Road, now for nearly 30 years.
I've lived in the area for just coming up to 18 years.
We live on Heathside Road, which used to be a very quiet residential street prior to the Safer Schemes project being instigated.
And this is the first time I feel like I want to move out of this area because it's not livable anymore.
And this is the first time I felt unhappy living here because of these barriers.
I would like to give my opinion on the Parsonage Road Safer Streets scheme. I understand the intention. I don't believe it's been executed very well. Where you're trying to make something safer, it is 100% not greener.
The council and everyone involved in allowing the installation of the planters need to hold their hands up and admit they got it wrong and remove them on February the 15th.
I love my home and I loved our road, which apart from the odd speeding car and trail bikes, it was fairly quiet. Certainly it wasn't a busy road. Since the LTN planters have been in place though, our road is now one of the few thoroughfares between Parsonage Road and Wilmslow Road, used by other residents whose exit points have been blocked, and by other road users of course.
Sustrans, I think, have sort of wowed them and tried to sort of enforce their vision onto the scheme, and I think what's happened is that vision's been forced onto the people making the decisions, and they're not looking at the bigger picture and how this scheme is going to affect everybody around it.
What I'd particularly like to draw your attention to is this barrier here. A number of the planters on corners have actually had a circular white strip put into the middle of the road to indicate to cars which side they're supposed to go when they turn the corner. They've omitted one here for very obvious reasons. If you look, you'll find the road is only narrow enough for one car. It's a very, very dangerous turning. Every time I come up this road, which I'm now forced to come up because I cannot go right and go towards Withington Village anymore, I'm forced to come up here and go onto one of the perimeter roads. I have to pause here. It's extremely dangerous.
We've seen a vast increase in traffic, and traffic, particularly at peak times, is probably of the order of 3 cars per minute, with about probably a quarter of those exceeding the speed limit. So as a result of this scheme, our road, which was once a very quiet, as I've said, was once a very quiet residential street, has become quite dangerous. And at peak times, it's not only dangerous, we're also getting the pollution from the increased traffic.
We didn't choose to buy a house to live on a busy road. My 2 children, 6 and 5 years old, do they not deserve safer streets like Parsonage Road too? It's even making us want to think about sell up if this scheme remains as it is.
holding it up, but you can see that there's just crazy amount of traffic.
The other issue with safety is I live on a road now where we've had a good few incidents that have taken place that are really worrying, and like I said, I've lived here 18 years. I've never occurred these sorts of incidents before.
I used to go for a stroll when it was sunset. I won't go out now after dark or if it's nearly dark. Last week there was a robbery here.
As a female that goes running around the neighbourhood quite a lot, I don't feel safe anymore, and I'm doing that less now because I don't like going down Parsonage Road. It's eerily quiet, and as I said, due to the crime, I just don't feel safe going around the streets anymore, which is a real great shame.
Again, Parsonage Road is very dark. I wouldn't go down there anymore with the dogs because it's too dark and isolated as a result.
It's been a struggle trying to get back in the dark with young children, elderly people, and the whole thing has just been absolutely such a nightmare.
I find cycling dangerous now that the planters are here.
When I am walking back now from the centre of town in the winter, I leave when it's dark and I return home when it's dark. It's dangerous walking around when there's not traffic. It's dangerous.
I don't feel safe walking back home from school as the roads are empty and are very frightening to walk alone.
On my road in particular, there was a really nasty incident last week where some criminality, some gangs were hiding behind planters.
Literally assaulted physically and had his keys taken off him and the car stolen.
The thieves hid behind the bollards here and ran off. The police arrived on the wrong side of the bollards and couldn't give chase, so the thieves got clean away. They got them later.
And on top of that, I think the emergency services, I know that it was said that all the emergency services have given the roadblocks the go-ahead, but there's been multiple instances of the police, ambulances, fire brigade getting lost around the roads, and that's adding on time in really serious situations, which is just not good enough, and that is going to continue if these roadblocks are here.
One of the residents spoke to the policeman and he said, "How long have these bollards been here? Why are they here?" He wasn't even aware that the planters were here when they arrived to try and get the thieves.
Recently I spoke to an ambulance driver who was trying to get to School Grove, but had to stop at the planters. He was clearly baffled by the maze and asked me how long the planters had been there.
We were told that the emergency services had been consulted before these barriers went up, and these policemen knew nothing about them.
An ambulance and told him like he was delirious and confused and that he had infection, and the ambulance turned up and it had to park on the other side of Armfield Road.
So on Heaton Road or the other side of Armfield?
The other side of Armfield.
Okay.
So over the barrier,
yeah.
And they had to come, put him in his wheelchair and wheel him up there and then bring the wheelchair back because of the barriers, and they'd only just been put in. So no.
They didn't, and this was definitely in September. Well, okay.
And I think if it's an emergency, and they come pretty quick.
Yeah.
And they thought, wow, where these barriers come from? They couldn't even bring the stretcher down because it was too far up the road.
Oh God! So he had to go in the wheelchair, whereas really it was a stretcher you wanted and he needed.
He's got Parkinson's. Yeah. He's bed and care, and that was the only way to get him from here to up there, because otherwise he would have had to go all the way round to come back in. Either way.
There was supposed to have been consultation with the emergency services about the scheme, but I can't imagine that they said that it looked like a good idea. Why would they think it was a good idea to take longer to reach people in an emergency? Does somebody have to die before the scheme gets scrapped?
You know, I'm sure there must be emergency services that have had tricky situations where they can't get to a house quick enough because they can't find the route.
I have a neighbour of mine who goes on a day-to-day basis or on a weekly basis 3 to 4 times for dialysis, and we've got ambulances parking on the other side of the planters during this cold period where it's absolutely freezing and everything is icy. The ambulance is having to take the wheelchair from the ambulance past the planters to the person's house to carry that person onto the ambulance.
The website and supporters of the scheme maintain that emergency services feed into the design so that the usual service can continue. All of us living on the estate, and anyone who cares to study the layout of the roads, knows this statement to be complete nonsense.
The flats opposite me had a fire alarm problem. It triggered to the local fire station, who came out because they thought there might be a fire. Normally they would come up Arnfield Road straight onto Allen Road and it would be a 2-minute drive. Various people took photographs of the driver behind the wheel of the fire engine doing 3-point turns on about 4 or 5 different occasions to try and find a route through. It took her 15 minutes to get there.
Minutes matter in emergencies.
The planters' cars go whizzing right. Honestly, there's a massive accident about to happen.
They're pushing live traffic into oncoming live traffic.
When you're driving from Allen Road onto Parsonage, it's very risky because you're risking hitting oncoming traffic.
And I know that there was an incident on the plant pots between Arnfield Road and Heaton Road with a young child, because the child did not stop going through the plant pots when a car was coming round the corner.
Very difficult, quick access for emergency vehicles.
Emergencies, if anybody is hiding ambulance or anything, it's very dangerous.
I believe it'll cause more accidents with blind corners.
It's a blind spot. I can't see what's coming late at night. And I've been involved in about half a dozen near misses already just in 3 months. It never used to be a dangerous point.
They are not safe at all, and I'm surprised that there's not been more head-on collisions, as it's been really difficult to see around the tight corners due to the plant pots.
This scheme does the exact opposite of what it's supposed to do. It causes danger, pollution and congestion.
I have not felt unsafe cycling in the area before. However, the modal filters have now created a dangerous intersection where the cars and bicycles meet.
Heathside Road is a nightmare going to work because it's a dangerous corner now, whereas traffic's built up coming out and you'll get someone turning into the road to cut through, sort of swinging right at you, so you have to try and avoid a collision.
Is dangerous. It's dangerous for emergency service response times, of which I've needed several times in the whole time I've lived on the estate, and now the fire service and ambulance would not be able to get to me as quickly. It's as simple as that. You've blocked the roads. It's not about sat-navs not being up to date, etc. Roads are blocked and it takes longer to get to different places.
We've witnessed one of the proverbial rat runners come down here at a massive speed, turn the corner and squeal down this road with nothing to prevent him. Yes, the planters didn't do what they're intended to do.
Now, I explained this to Jeff Smith and the councillors, and as has many other people who have been to the consultations and basically to the recent meeting that's happened at the Methodist Church, and we've highlighted the kind of flaws in this scheme, and they are now actual factual, we have facts here that are stating that this isn't, we don't feel safe, generally speaking.
Safer Streets is misnamed because it's just not safer streets. Some streets may feel safer, other streets absolutely not.
And I'm against it because I don't think it's safe at all.
It really, really is not a good scheme, and I don't think it's been thought fully through.
This scheme has been very badly planned, poorly executed, and it needs to be removed in full.
People were shocked when this scheme was implemented, and it needs to be got rid of in February. I don't even think making little fiddles here and there is good enough. It needs to be gone. The impact that it's had is very, very negative.
It definitely doesn't work here, and it should be scrapped immediately.
And the whole thing is just a mess. It should be scrapped.
Get back to where we were before.
That we are definitely not for these planters. They need to be removed, and the council really need to take this on board seriously with all the feedback that they are getting.